Again, the idea when we designed the day program was to get into more and more details, but with some illustrations highlight, given the assumption we made about the profile of the participants. Keep this in mind. And of course, for all the countries, we will have to adjust carefully the slides and the presentations to the audience. We need to localize them. I mean, they have to be in Italian for Italy, in Swedish for Sweden, etc. But in addition to the language, you really have to take into consideration the audience. So for this session that is called Getting Data and Language Resources, with some of the practical aspects that people will have to go through in order to share their resources with us. The first thing, I think I said already this a couple of times, we will have repositories where people would be able to store the data. Whether it's the people, whether it's us, this is something that we can discuss. But this is the idea. There will be places of storage. We would like to share with them what is the workflow, coming from the reports or whatever they have to the resources that will be usable by machine translation. In that particular session, the most important section is the last one, where we are giving screenshots about the help desk, the repository, and things like that. And I will probably move to that very, very quickly. Again, this is an oral session, and if you want to shorten it, make sure you shorten the first part that is about the data management, etc., and keep the final section. So I don't go back into the paradigm that I already introduced. What we are looking for is the visible data, but also the invisible data like archives, the hidden web internal repositories. And I try to bring this into a workflow that people can understand, what I call here the value chain activity, from the identification and selection of data sources, and then trying to clarify, or at least to determine, the legal status of the data. And here we mentioned that most of the data would be under this PSI directive, but in some cases it may be data that the Commission can license from either the administration or from the owner. Then we need to have some basic documentation. This is the famous metadata in red and black that we would like people to introduce to make sure that the data is documented a minimum. Then, a very critical thing, even if it's public data, I mentioned that in this legal session, what are the privacy, what are the security, what are the issues that we have to care about. Once we have done this, we will do some pre-processing that is the basic thing, cleaning, format conversion, and things like that. And then there will be a big challenge about validation and quality assessment. This is something we don't try to emphasize too much. If I may just make a quick joke here, I have a team of programmers, and I always tell them, I do need to have these programs into the open source domain when you have finished that. And the argument is, oh, you know, I didn't document my code. It's badly programmed. I didn't use the right library. I didn't do that. I did do that. So I would like not to put it in to put it in open source domain. So whenever we talk about quality, people are very frightened. They are concerned. What would the others say about the quality of my data? So here, what we would like to validate is some basic things. If we are looking for lexica, it has to be a lexicon. If we're looking for parallel text, we should make sure that it's parallel text. Whether it's a high quality translations is an issue. But I would like us all to make sure that we don't address this as a prerequisite, but rather at some later stage. And the last item is description and storage of the resources. And then what we would like to do is to have this shared repository where we put the data, and everyone within our community should be able to access the data. I insisted early this morning about the fact that we would like to get things for the Commission, but whatever we can get that is usable by the research community, by the business and industry, whenever this is compatible with the public sector regulations, we should do that. So here you can see where we do need the involvement of the different partners. It's clear that identifying the sources is something we cannot do ourselves, because if the idea was just to identify the .gov something, we would have done that, but we would like to go beyond that, and we need to partner with the people that you are inviting to the workshops. And you can see that, for instance, at the end, the public sector bodies will be also involved, the European Commission and the consortium. So this is the workflow that we imagine, and we can elaborate on the issues that have to do with each of these topics. What do we do when the privacy and ethics are at an issue? What do we do for when the data format is a problem? What do we do to upload the data? Would that be a USB key? Would that be internet, FTP? Things like that can be discussed together. So already said that the major thing is to make sure that we get data in readable format. That's the basic requirement. And let me then just, this is examples of all the things that I have said. The last part of this section is about the consortium portal. You have the URL here, and it's open. You can already see what it's there. If you go to the portal, you will see, to have a, yeah. Well, we see that we have a help desk. Do we have a mouse for this? Well, can you just play? Yeah, maybe I can. Anyway, yes, here it is, yes. So we have a help desk. No, not visible on the, maybe. Anyway, we have a help desk where you could have answer to questions about how do I handle this format, how do I handle this character, how do I handle the legal aspect, all these things. We do have answers. You have another tag there about the resources that we are trying to get. For the help desk, you have all the details. You can access the help desk through a phone number, through an email, through a web forum, and we will make sure to answer the questions within a very reasonable time. Now, for the resources, we can imagine different scenarios. This is one of the scenarios. We have a huge database where we can submit either sources of data. I know someone in the Ministry of Education who has an archive, and we can document that and make sure that later on we talk to that person and try to get the data. Or someone who can submit data, like the example I mentioned for our German colleagues, who said, I do have 50,000 pairs from my translation memories, and I can donate that, and this is the example of data that we would like to get. So how do we get this? All the options are open. It could be any media that we know today. And if I look and very quickly to the database where our sources are being hosted, this is a place where the providers can access and they can document things they have. It can be also accessed by people to check what is there in terms of sources. I am from a Slovak public sector body. I want to look at what is there, or I want to see what the Swedish did if I'm from Norway, and things like that. And all these resources are there with some metadata. The name of the source, like the l'Agence Française de lutte contre le dopage, we know that they are located somewhere and they have a website, and we expect them to have some data. And the idea of this database is to be as exhaustive as possible and to cover all the identified sources of data that we came across through the network of people that we have. So this is the practical things, and again, we have to make sure that the people introducing this section have seen already the slides from the previous section to make sure that the redundancy and duplicate are as minimal as possible.